What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 368 of the Embody podcast. Today, I am so excited to share Helen Vonderheide with you. Helen was my original Akashic Records reader back in 2018 when I started to get into working in the records formally. I did a couple readings with Helen, and I started feeling like, oh, maybe this is something I should do. And then in my very next reading, when I was going to ask about it, it came up before I could even ask. So I did a training with Helen, and then I did a training with her mentor, Linda Howe, and the rest, as they say, is history. So in this episode today, Helen and I are geeking out about working in the records, the way working in our own records and working in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people's records has affected our lives, some different technologies that she's been developing after years and years in the records, and being a teacher trainer as well. So this is such an incredible episode, really fun. For those of you who have had Akashic Records readings with me, or who are just interested in the Akashic field, what's available in that field, and to get a deeper understanding, you're gonna love this one. The show notes can be found at untameyourself.com/368. And that's it. Share it out. Let us know how you like it, and we'll see you soon. Helen, you're here.
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm really excited. So, we have a whole intro and everything, but I just want to tell people listening, I want to give them the backstory. So in 2018, it was the fall of 2018, I was bumping into some personal stuff that I was really challenged to access and move through on my own. And, as practitioners, sometimes we feel like I have the tools, I should be able to do this myself. And my friend Christina had just had a reading with you, and she was telling me about it. And I'm like, this is what I need. And I had heard of the Akashic Records before. And actually, as I thought about it, I'd had a really different kind of Akashic Records readings, 5 years prior to that, in 2013. And I had my reading with you, and the insights were really helpful. But what I loved more than anything was just sitting in that field and feeling that energy of real, the way I always describe it for people is it felt like sitting in a bath of just true, real, unconditional love and light and compassion. And I know readings are not meant to be healing sessions, but I always find they can't help but also be healing sessions because the energy of the field is just, it's so potent, it's so beautiful, and it's so pure, at least the way you held it. So anyway, everyone, Helen is really the person who got me, via my friend Christina Italic, who will be on the podcast someday as well, into the Akashic Records. So thanks, Helen.
Oh, thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was, that really was, I don't know, for some reason, emotional for me to hear, because actually every reading is a healing. And it's not like you go to the records I want to be healed. You go to the records because you're I need some clarity, insight, guidance, direction. And then in that energy transmission, it's you're healed, or there's this healing that takes place that just holds you. Whatever that energy is, it just cocoons you. And it's you got this.
Yeah.
We got you, it's this partnership.
Totally. So before we dive in and geek out about being in the records and working and evolving through that, my check-in question that I ask everyone to start the show is, how's your heart today?
Oh man, my heart is experiencing duality. One piece of that is an overwhelming, anxious unknown of what the future is going to look like. I'm just in a really big transitional point in my life right now, so big, but also not that big, But so I feel that on a human level, on a nervous system level. But then the other side of that is just complete trust and knowing that everything always works out. And so I kind of laugh to myself sometimes, why do you get in such a frenzy when everything will work out?
Well, that's the human condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know, can we talk about transitions for a minute? Because
Yeah.
I laughed with you as you were like, huge transition. Well, not that huge, because I know you've been through several huge transitions in your life, from career shifts to 2 different cross-country moves, right?
Yeah.
And this actually came up recently in my Embodied Living Center community. Someone was asking about having a really hard time with transitions. And I know, as well, just from your own experience. And then of course you've done at this point, do you even keep count? How many Akashic Records readings have you done?
No, I lost track. I would say I've been reading since 2014, and I've always had just a very fulfilling practice. At times, I could work with anywhere from 5 upwards to sometimes even like 20 people a week.
Yeah.
It would just depend on how much I wanted to make myself available. Now that I'm getting like, a little bit older in my practice, meaning like more experience, more aware of my energy, more aware of boundaries that I need to have so that I'm also taking care of myself. I would say what feels comfortable now is probably about 5 like one-on-one sessions a week.
Yeah. So, all right, since 2014, so you've probably done like over 1,000 readings, if not more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be, because I've done
Yeah.
close to 400 at this point, and it's only been almost 3 years. That's amazing. I asked that because I have just noticed how time in that field, in that space with people, has just been wildly transformational for like everything in my life,
Yes.
which we can come back to that as well. But specifically, so often people are asking about transitions and moving through. So I've gotten to bear witness to so many. So in some broad strokes, like what are your pearls around moving through big transitions? What do you notice for yourself and for other people?
Well, this response comes from my experience of working in the records. And when I engage this resource, because the Akashic Records are an archive of impressions, but it comes from this field, which is essentially the field is ether. It is a primary substance, and so when you engage in this field, and I use it as a resource, so when you engage in this resource, you start to become aware of these like very anchoring truths that hold you throughout the human experience. And especially when you're working with another person and you can hold that for them and be that anchor for them. And so you start to accumulate this knowledge, these anchored truths of just absoluteness. And when you're starting to move through life and you come up against some turbulence, you're anchored, you're safe, And what I love about your work is also connected to the body, but am I safe in this body to be anchored in this truth? Because this body is finite and I don't know if, it is safe, if it is stable, and then that's of course another layer of work that someone gets to explore that I've been able to explore. But as I've been moving through, transformation, when I work in the records, they're revealing my expansive potentiality. Like, it's like, Helen, here is what's available for you in this infinite world. Like, this human experience truly is infinite, even though we're finite and we're mortal beings. And so here's what's available for you, and you become aware of that. And then they sort of guide you in accordance to that. And that's when it starts to get really uncomfortable, because you are stepping into more of an expansive imprint that is true of you. And it's really uncomfortable.
It's really uncomfortable. And one of the things that I notice, I'm sure you do as well, I have a lot of people who come back pretty consistently for readings. Some people will go on a streak where they're doing like monthly. Some people will come like once a quarter, a couple times a year, whatever. And often they'll reference their last reading, which obviously more often than not, I am not remembering what happened in anybody's reading. Sometimes when they bring it back up, I'll be like, oh yeah. But it's fascinating how people will show up and be like, they're going to be mad at me. I didn't do what they said. And by the way, when we say they, I'm referring to the masters, teachers, and loved ones. Do you still, we're going to get there, but I know your work has evolved. Are you still working with masters, teachers, and loved ones in the records, or has it moved beyond that?
So it has moved beyond that. They are there. They are still there. And
Yeah.
I still like love them so much. But now I'm starting, the energy that I'm working with now is more expansive. And so the groups of beings that I work with are, it's really simple. It's guardians, guiding forces, and just all supportive beings. So it really calls in whatever of the infinite wants to come through. But one of the things that I say is faithful guardians, devoted guiding forces. And so I'm really calling in like, what is going to be the most supportive, the most aligned guidance that I can receive.
I love that. Well, and I just wrote that down so we can come back to it. So what it sounds like you're saying in the transitions and working in the records is what makes it so scary, especially is when people are being called to like be a higher version of themselves, like a more expanded, a more evolved, a more whole, divinely embodied. That's hard for people.
And then I think too, that when we have this resource available for us, and it is available always, and we can receive those anchoring truths, then we have something to hold us steady as we're in the unsteadiness of embodying that expansive potentiality.
Yeah. Yes. Because I noticed one of the things that I started doing just over the summer in the Embodied Living Center is adding energetic attunements. So kind of beyond, we have the whole library of all these healing meditations, but kind of beyond that, I'm like, I'm only one person, and I'm sure you have this experience too. I can only do so many embodied healing sessions and one-on-one sessions and energy work on people. And I want people to be able to like dip in and access and get a little tune up for real, like if they need one. So one of the things I asked was, all right, I want to do basically like a whole library of energetic attunements for fears, because there's so many. And I'm kind of a freak in that I just don't have the relationship to fear that a lot of people do. Like it's just how I'm built. I could look it in the face and be like, I see you, we're doing this shit anyway, and just not be stuck in hell. I have it, right? I'm not without. People often label me like, you're so fearless. I'm like, I'm not. I just don't mind feeling it while I'm doing shit, But I know that's not the case for a lot of people. So I try to study fear so I can understand, but I bring all of this up because this is something else. People come to the record to like stuck. I'm so stuck. And often it's the fear. So what have you noticed? We talked a little bit about transitions. What have you come to understand about the nature of fear and dealing with and working through fear from working in the records?
Well, Elizabeth, you really had your finger on the pulse, because fear is breakthrough. It's someone who is committed to breaking through and coming up against this vibration, because fear, while it is an emotion, it is a very real, visceral experience. It really is just a vibration of energy. And when you can start to tease it out, to really gently like hold that fear in your hands or in your heart and just ask like, what are you bringing for me? What can I see about myself? What can I tease out? What can I look at? And then you just start to receive all these little, pieces of insight that are supportive. And as you receive that, then ultimately you are breaking through whatever that was. And it really is just that energy, that just needs our attention. And then as you break through that, you do move into the next version of you. Like you'll never go back, like a really generic example is like you touch a hot stove and you burn your hand, you learn your lesson. You're not going to put your hand on the hot stove again. So once you break through the fear, it's like you can't even fathom like going back to having fear around whatever that was that you were afraid of.
Okay. But this So one of the things I talk about in the context of healing all the time is that it happens in a spiral. It's like this spiral, but I think of it like a spiral staircase because people often will face the same issues over and over again, especially I find in relationships, in like career, vocation, calling, purpose, and then around money, right? People find themselves in similar situations over and over again. And they're like, I thought I already healed this. And my thing is always, you move through a layer of it for sure. Like I really don't believe anyone can go backwards. I don't believe people can relapse, but I believe they can revisit things, but they can't, they have the last experience they had and the experiences before that. So it's not the same, but often people are feeling like this again, but it's like, but you haven't gone backwards. So I appreciate you saying that, like you can't go back, but I want you to say more about the fear still being there. Cause like the stove is a simple example. And like, when it comes to like relationships or money or, you know, issues of self-worth, it gets a little more complex.
Okay, definitely. So then let me use myself as an example. So right now, I have created a whole new body of work and I've been testing it out on people. And I also am testing it out on myself. And one of the things that I've been moving through in this life is relationships, romantic relationships. Like that has definitely been some sludge for me.
Me too.
Oh my goodness. So what's amazing is the curriculum started to show me, Helen, like in terms of your profession, your passion, your work, like you have fully embodied it, like, and you just continue to magnify that and open it in all these creative ways. And that just for you is like this, it's like this flower that just continually is blooming.
I love that visual. So beautiful.
Yeah, it's so helpful for me to see because I'm like, oh, wow, my partnership with my work, that is totally in alignment. Yeah. Like the most expansive partnership I could ever ask for on a career level, right?
Yes.
But then when it comes to being like intimate and vulnerable with another human being, you know, I got all my things in here that like all my barriers and what they started to show me, they being the guides, of course, is that Helen, yes, you've had these experiences in relationships and you've been evolving like as you've grown. And what you are aligning yourself with within this lifetime is to be in a partnership, an expansive partnership like you have with your work. And that takes a lot of work because even though your business, your work is a partnership, you know, and I would also say that my partnership with my business also includes the guides that I work with who are definitely helpful for me in this area. So it's like I have this like really fluid partnership here. But when I look at my partnership with a romantic individual, like I have just so many kinks in the energy field that I'm like moving through and I'm just kind of like caressing with like my love and my acceptance and my grace. And then also what I see is, you know, this journey for me, I loved when you were talking about how fear is this spherical experience, right? It's not linear. And that also is true of my history with romantic relationships. It has been a linear journey. Like I can see, oh, Helen, at this age, you're with this person, you experienced that, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But what I start to see is if I like pull that human timeline away, what I start to see is this journey, this like spherical journey of me learning more about myself on a physical level, on an emotional level, and then being in partnership with another physical person that also can like hold that space with me. So I think what I do in the area, and I know this is how you also work with others, is I just sort of take it an experience at a time. I'm like, okay, Helen, here's where you're at right now. And I'll tell you where I'm at right now. There's a relationship that ended a couple years ago, a little over 2 years ago for me. And this relationship was, oh my God, it was everything. However, what it was not was an alignment for the future.
Ugh.
And especially with the future that I hold for myself and what I see, and especially what I see when I work in the records. And so when I see that partnership with that person, it doesn't have the expansive future that I feel for myself. And so naturally, that relationship was there to just teach me and to show me that I can hold my truth. I can hold the light steady for myself, and that I absolutely will come into alignment with, one, two, three, who knows, I don't even know if I'm meant to be with one person for the rest of my life. So I
Right.
think what I see is like, just be on this journey, Helen. And also as uncomfortable as it is, and, as uncomfortable as grief is, because like I experienced like the most tremendous grief that I've ever experienced in my life, like separating from that person. There's something so beautiful about it. Like I just, it's almost like I'm so grateful to have that experience of grief.
My God. I feel I am with you on this. Like everything you said, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. She's telling my story. Totally relate. Check, 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 check. And I'm sure so many people listening can relate as well. And I find this is quite common, to be honest, with so many of my friends and colleagues that do work in, the spiritual realm. We'll just call it that, spiritual
Mhm.
and energetic work, because, and I love how you keep using the word expansive, because that's what it is. We are always growing, expanding, shifting our energy, moving into different areas, and not from any kind of superior place. Like I also really appreciate how you described it. Just it's so neutral, right? Like I feel like there's no ego. It's just about, this is the journey. This is what's happening. Like just very matter of factly, because that's how I experience it as well. But what's funny is I always also feel the like overarching, like messaging of the culture that wants to be like, but something is wrong with you. You're 38 years old. You should have already figured this out by now. And this has been a very humbling year for me. And I don't know how into astrology you are, but this Saturn retrograde that just ended, thank friggin' God, really felt like a review of, okay, cool. So you think but you have no idea. Was basically, I was like, oh. So it was really, and I love that. And kind of like you were describing the grief, I find humility to be like very tenderizing, very softening, very like, I just feel more receptive than ever, because I know now more than ever how little I know. And it's like, great, like, I don't know shit. And so when I find myself wanting to cling or attach to things I think I do know, I can just loosen my grip and be like, maybe. Let's see. Let's see. And I'm so much more comfortable in the let's see and in the not knowing, because I've seen for myself and so many people as well in the records that most of the suffering comes from clinging to what we think we know.
Yeah.
Or wanting something to go according to our friggin' plan. And one of my favorite quotes of all time is, you plan, God laughs. And not in like a mocking way. I just imagine God, goddess, whoever people connect with or whatever you connect with, like laughing like a parent laughs, watching the child like wobble on its little legs as it's learning how to walk, that kind of like, oh, that's adorable. Not a mocking or a condescending laugh, but like, oh, that's so cute.
That's what I was feeling when you said it, just this like adoration,
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I love that so much. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about too is I find something I've noticed, people who show up to me to ask specific things, I find it so beautiful that I'm the reader because I have context for like the stuff. And I find that to be really true, that even though the records are the records and, the guides are the guides and what's going to come through is always available, there does seem to be something about who the reader is mattering on some level. And I know you've been training people. I've done 2 trainings with you, 2 trainings with you. Do you notice that? Am I making that up?
No, that it's so true. An experience that's coming to mind. So if I'm unavailable, I'll refer people out to like former students of mine, and I'll refer those people out and they'll have an experience. And more times than not, they'll come back to me and they're like, oh yeah, they were really great. They were helpful, but they're not you.
Hmm.
Like so there is something about the reader. And I think for me personally, when I first opened my records and I felt the connection and I heard them, I'm clairaudience. So I heard them. There was no mistaking that I was connected to something that was outside of me, but inside of me. I was like, this is so real. I will never, ever doubt. I have a 0.01 doubt, healthily doubt. But anyhow, it's really small. But anyways, because that experience was so real, I decided to dedicate myself to studying and to becoming the best reader that I could be.
Mm.
And I think that through my training, and not just my Akashic training, but like any kind of development training, through all my training, I've been able to like blend these skills with the gift and ability that is there to connect to this non-physical energy and resource, and to be able to interpret their messages. Because when they give you a message, I have to interpret it or translate it into words sometimes,
Yeah,
because the feeling is like, how do you put
totally.
that feeling into words, so I think it really takes an exceptional reader to interpret that and to
Yeah,
put that into words. And so one of the things that I love, I mean, oh my God, I'm so sensitive. And so I really love someone that can deliver compassionately. And that's, of course, like immediately when I'm receiving those messages, the translation will come through compassionately, because they will be, and they are with me, they are very straightforward. And as a matter of fact, like, someone recently brought something to my attention around how I had hurt them. Unbeknownst to me, it was unconscious how I hurt them. And when I went into my records with that, they just kept saying, know that you hurt her. And I'm like, I understand I hurt her, but come on, tell me what's going on. And they again repeated it. No, KNOW, know that you hurt her. And they said it 3 times. And I was like, oh, we have past lives. I hurt her. It's like more than this lifetime, right? And
Mm.
so that's like when they can be so real with me, but then also it takes that interpretation. Like, what are you saying to me? Oh, I get it now. Like I remember another time a message they gave me was, this is when I was with my ex-boyfriend, and I was like so lovey, I was so in love with him and I just wanted to love him. And he was like really off put one time. And I was like, well, what's going on with him? And they said, no, I said, why is he being weird? And they said, you're being weird. You are needy and clingy. So that's what I mean around like, they will be real with you. Like they do not feed you BS to
Yeah.
feed your ego. Like they will check you right where you're at.
Yep.
But what I do when I'm reading is I can receive that, and it be very straightforward. But I have this agreement where I just ask them, immediately convert that into a compassionate message. I don't want someone I'm a very highly sensitive person. Not all people are. But if I am, I have to be the type of reader that delivers it in that way.
Totally. Yeah. Always filtering through the compassion. Quick break in the show, everybody, to let you know that applications are open for my 2022 Embodiment Specialist training. I am so excited about this training. It is like 7 or 8 years in the making. It is expanded beyond what was Wild Soul Movement teacher training since 2016. And this is really for anybody who feels the pull to graduate from doing basic level self-help, personal development, and spiritual work, and truly embody self-love, healing, and wholeness, so they can live soulful and soul-centered lives that contribute to collective healing and liberation, as well as people who are wanting to really integrate the light and the dark, who place a high value on kindness, generosity, integrity, humility, and reverence, who know that while we receive all kinds of gifts and talents and genius, we are the instruments, not the players. This is for people who want to prioritize embodying their divine nature in order to serve the human experience, as well for those who would like to incorporate embodiment work into their professional lives in some way, shape, or form, or just deepen their own practice. So if you want to learn more about the training, which starts in February 2022, head to untameyourself.com/specialist. There are some dates by which to apply if you need an extended payment plans. We have a couple different extended payment plans, and it's just going to be an incredible alchemical transformative experience. It's going to be a small, intimate group because I will also be mentoring and working with everyone one-on-one throughout the 13 months of the training. So again, really deep, really beautiful, really incredible experience. If you are interested, go to untameyourself.com/specialist, and I will be so excited to receive your application if you decide to submit one. There's so much in everything that you just said. One of the things I've been listening to a lot of Carolyn Mace recently, and her work around being a mystic, like a mystic outside of a monastery. And one of the things that what got me on this tear of just deep diving through all of her stuff was an audio between her and Clarissa Pinkola Estes called Intuition in the Mystical Life. It's just like this epic 3-hour, it's like two good old friends who happen to be epic, legendary practitioners and writers, spiritual teachers, just hanging out, talking about mysticism and the intuition and the mystical life. And one of the big things they both really talked about and agreed on is how integral self-esteem is to being, to connecting to your gifts, to using your gifts, because you have to be able to trust yourself. And without self-esteem, you're not going to trust yourself. And I actually remember this from the first training I did with you, because I'd been doing my work for so many years and self-trust was such a big part of that. It was just like lapping up water. Let's do this. Dive right in. Got it. Here come the messages. And it was pouring out. And I remember some of the people I was partnered up with in the training, that was not happening for them, but it was really just because I was willing to trust myself and they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was so fascinating. And I'm hearing like through just a lot of what you're saying is that willingness to just like be humble, listen, but like trust. And like you said, that healthy, like 0.01%, because sometimes it's like uncanny. That's how I trust. Yesterday, some people that I've read for a few times, rather than coming with a bunch of questions, they'll be like, okay, hit me. Like, what's in the field? What do they want me to know? And I had a reading with someone yesterday like that, where it was like, okay, well, what's going on with your parents? What's going on with your sister? How's your body? And basically everything that I said, she had written down to ask about. And I'm like, of course it is like, there's no other way to explain that. Like, how would I know? I don't.
Right.
But, is there anything you want to say about that? The self-esteem piece?
Oh, Elizabeth. Oh my goodness. So I think about one of my friends, one of my students, and she asked me about self-doubt. She was like one of my early on students, like probably within the first year of teaching is when we worked together. And she asked me, Helen, like, what about doubt? And my response to her, and this is, over time, who knows what the exact words were, but her interpretation of it, because she always repeats it to me, was that I said, doubt is a belief that I just cannot give my energy to. It can't receive me. So that's my relationship with it.
I love that.
But admittedly, being a teacher of the Akashic Records, I would say about 50%, at least 50% of students struggle with self-doubt. And it is the thing that will, kind of like guide them in a different direction, of maybe just working with some different tools or practices. But the students who get it, they get it and it just explodes. Like, it's extraordinary. Yeah. I remember you like when we were working together. I mean, even when you and I just were, doing some one-on-one work together, it was like you were in the field with me. You got it. You were like totally in the frequency of receptivity. And you also knew to discern like what was really aligning, what was true, and maybe what just wasn't quite hitting the mark, or maybe it just needed some time to unfold. I think that that's also, when it comes to doubt, it's like someone just being so honest with themselves about what's being presented. And also the records are filtered through all of our senses, and we don't know what senses that's going to come through, but whatever it is, just kind of being with that. One of the first ways the records come through is through feeling. So it's like an emotional experience, like what are you feeling, and then just getting people to be in tune with that. Some people are disconnected from their body, like they like may not, like if someone touched them, they may not even feel that. And so it's like getting someone to feel and then to articulate that and put words to it. So
Yeah.
it's not that something isn't true or it is. It's just that the records, it is this source of connection so that you can feel how you are something greater.
Yeah. I love this. And, this is something I have this little like preamble to readings when it's someone's first time. And one of the things that I always say to people is, I'm like, listen, this is a source for spiritual guidance. We're not channeling God here. I'm like, so if something doesn't resonate for you, ditch it. Like, please ditch it. Maybe you'll come back to it later. Maybe you won't, but please do not leave this reading feeling like I just delivered gospel for you. Like, take what resonates and please ditch what doesn't, and trust yourself more than me. Right. Because people want answers, which I find this to be one of the most lovable things about humans, how much they want answers, how much they want to get it right. They want to do the right thing. They want to be on the right path, the right purpose. Like they want to be directing their energy and effort and attention towards the right things. And when I say I feel bad, I really don't. I feel some kind of way about when people show up and they're just hoping that I'm just going to like tell them. And I'm like, that's very rarely how it works. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I always remember one of the examples I think you gave in the training was, someone might show up and be like, when am I going to meet the love of your life? And the guides might be like, well, when you clean out your closet and forgive your sister. Right. But they wanted it to be like 3 months on a Tuesday, go to this place, sit in this booth, they'll walk in the door. That's like never how it works.
Thank you for saying that, Elizabeth, because the records are a resource for growth.
Yeah.
And moving the energy. So it isn't this, unfortunately, it is not this resource to reveal our life. Like we absolutely have our free will to do and make choices as we please. So what the records will reveal is, oh, here's a little area of your life that needs your attention, maybe some cleanup, maybe some life lessons that are important for you to be aware of. And then once you direct your focus and you start to, again, like I just love like teasing out energy. Once you start to tease it out, you start to see how life is like responding and reflecting just everything that's available for you.
Yeah. Oh my God. So let me ask you something, because here's something I've noticed that goes beyond what I learned in the training I did with you and the training I did with Linda. One of the things that originally came through was that like time doesn't exist in the records. And so like when people are asking timing questions, there's usually not an answer for that. But I actually get a lot of time references in my readings. I'm curious what you have found around that.
That's great. I would say that I'm a 50-50. Like 50% the timing is spot on and it happens. And then 50% is that it might not be spot on. But here's what I've noticed about timing, Elizabeth. And I think this is probably why you are really good at receiving time, is because you know where you are at or where people are at in their growth and development, their willingness to show up and sort of address the energy or the situation at hand. And if someone is willing to show up, to do that, to make an effort, maybe not complete something, but just be with that, then the timelines absolutely can be on point. Totally. But it requires that work or that, I would say, the attention.
Yeah. And you're right, because it's never like on the nose. It's usually is giving someone a window of time. Like, and it's usually like in the next couple of weeks, couple months, whatever, 6 months, year, pay attention for ... Again,
Yes.
it's never this directive, like in 3 weeks. I actually had a reading with a longtime client yesterday who we're all susceptible to this, right? She wandered past some like metaphysical shop that was giving free readings. And she was like, ooh, like there was something top of mind. You know, in my perception, that's one of the ways that evil like trickles in on us sometimes. It's like, oh, let's get someone on this hook for this shit that they want to know. And the person who gave her reading, like told her, like, you will be fired within 3 weeks to 3 months. And I was like, literally, first of all, she was so relieved she had an Akashic Records reading. A couple of days later, she's like, hi, this is now in my brain, set me straight. Because I was like, okay, first of all, anything that's coming from like a pure, like unconditionally loving source of guidance for you is not going to tell you something like that. It's just not.
Yeah.
Like and I'm curious for your experiences with this too, but often I'm getting more information than I'm permitted to share.
Yes.
It's like for context, it's like they're telling me more and being like, but just share this piece. Cause it's like you said, sometimes people are ready and sometimes they're not. And it's actually not helpful at all to dump shit on people that they're not in a place to hear or use in any useful way.
Oh my God, Elizabeth, there's two things that came to mind. And this is what I learned when I was in my training with Linda Howe. Akashic readings are love-based.
Yep.
So exactly what you just touched on. It's like you come into this space and you get loved up on and you're so empowered. And so maybe you get fired, maybe you don't, maybe you leave on your own terms, but at least now you are empowered to be aware of what's appropriate for you and make appropriate choices for yourself.
Yeah.
So anything else that's like fear-based, which that just feels like a fear-based reading, which if someone told me that, I would be freaking out. I'd be having like a meltdown, like, oh my God, what is happening with my life? But that's not helpful. That's debilitating.
Totally.
I would be paralyzed. Like my will would be paralyzed. And that's just not helpful. And I'm in the business. We are in the business of being helpful.
Right. Yeah. Oh man. And that's again, like something that I would imagine if there was some information around that, the thing that would be appropriate to share would be like, just pay attention to your job and just be looking at other options. Just like be available for a shift or a pivot or something like that. Just so awareness can be brought to a thing. And speaking of pivots, this is also something I've noticed in readings and working in my own records and getting readings over the years. And it makes me laugh. I have this relationship where I'm like, you guys with the guy, sometimes I'm like,
I know,
but really I'm from Staten Island. I'm like, you motherfucker. I mean it with love, but damn. Cause sometimes I find, and I have found this with clients too. Sometimes the guidance I get, I have to, or clients have to so vehemently be like, no, because that's the spiritual empowerment. The empowerment is to like, get this thing and be like, no, I refuse that. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not listening. That's not how I want it to be. Or to be led down a path that you need to go on to get to a pivot point, not because that's like the outcome.
Yes. Oh my God, that is so spot on. Actually, I had mentioned earlier, I'm in this really big transitional place in my life. There's a couple of things that are happening. I, of course, created a new body of work that I just recently started to share with, the outside world. And two, I live in Baltimore City and I am looking to move to a different neighborhood in Baltimore City. And what's interesting about this cross-country move, I moved from Los Angeles. When I got settled into this home here and all of this work started to come through me, I was so blown away at what was being developed that I had said to them, I don't know how I would have been able to do this in Los Angeles. And they said to me, you wouldn't have, and that's why you're here. And I was so blown away. And that was a pivot. I needed to make a pivot. So now I'm at another pivot point in my life where I've been in this neighborhood. I've been in this place for a year, and it's time to pivot and be in a different neighborhood. And what they said about like the move, because I'm just like, really, I love this home. I just got settled. I'm tired. I'm a human being. I need a break. And they were like, you were just here to really anchor in this portal of energy, and you've done it. And now it's time to move. And so I'm just moving to a different neighborhood that's like not too far away, but it's kind of comical to me because I feel like, oh, if anything, like I've been able to anchor in just like all of this energy and goodness, and whatever that brings, whatever that brings, it brings.
It's funny because, as you know, I just moved to Miami and I'm feeling very similarly. Like, my goodness, I needed out of California. And I love my apartment. I love my apartment so much. And I keep saying, I never want to move. And I'm like, I got to be really careful because it's almost like an invitation to be booted out. I'm like, I don't want to move unless I have to. Cause like, I mean, since I've known you, I think I've moved 3 or 4 times. So the thing is, if I get the boot, if I get like the cosmic boot, I'm always going to go. I can't not go, but I will do so begrudgingly, and just pray for all the grace. All right. I want to come back to something you said earlier. You mentioned past lives, like with that thing, you would heard a person, know that you've heard her. And one of the things that I love, that I find so entertaining, that when I'm reading does not get entertained, or when people just want to show up and treat the records like a fortune teller and be like, tell me about my past lives. Cause like, and what I always get is like, that's so indulgent. Like, they don't share unless it's like worth knowing, valuable to, like, if it's just going to be a distraction, like they don't indulge a curiosity that doesn't have like value or purpose.
Yes. Oh my God, Elizabeth. So I have similar experiences as you, where people will just openly say, tell me about my past lives. So over time, I've had to create a little bit of like a question structure when someone is coming into that. I don't think people realize that could be difficult for a reader to do, because right. when we go to the records, that means we go to them with, something specific. Like, I want to see a shift in my life around a certain area, and to just like play with past lives, like that might not necessarily be helpful. So what I've done is, what I'll say is, okay, maybe this person hasn't given me any information about themselves. So what I'll say to their guides is, where this person is at in their life with all their relationships to whatever, right? People, work, creativity, I don't know, voice, you name it, body. So you guys know where this person is at. What are the past life experiences that are relevant and supportive to where this person is? And then what they'll do is they'll give me anywhere from 1 to 3 past lives. And then what you start to see as you reveal that is there are patterns, themes, life lessons. And so that person's like, oh my God, I'm in a relationship with someone like that right now, and we're experiencing the same pattern. And so we'll kind of go there, and then that's really helpful. But for me as a practitioner, that took a lot of practice, and I had to figure out, how do I like dig around this?
I remember that is something I learned from you. I don't know if it was directly or indirectly, to dig when the question is really general. And I appreciate that. It's also really fun. I love like getting to the root of things. So I also find that to be super satisfying. So your new body of work, which I am obviously elated, is called Embody, the Source of Your Consciousness.
Yes.
Before we got on, you were just mentioning how you've had students who used to do Linda Howe's work with you when you were training people in that, and now have moved on to this new body of work with you, say they could really feel such a difference. So what do you want to share about that? Tell me everything.
Oh, well, first and foremost, like previously, just like you, we've been trained under Linda Howe's work, and her body of work. Oh my God. I mean, it really was like such an entry point for me into this world of Akasha. And I really needed that discipline and structure to help me navigate this field. But we used a prayer that Linda Howe received, and everyone used the same prayer. And over my several years of teaching, what I started to see in like students, or maybe even in clients who wanted to learn how to read the records, or, would just teach themselves, is that something wasn't quite clicking or working. And so what is that thing that's not clicking or working? And when I did some further investigation, the guidance I would receive is, Linda's prayer is not a vibrational match for this individual. And there's so many reasons why that could be or couldn't be, or things that you can do or can't do. But basically the guidance that I would receive is, well, you can get so-and-so, their own way of accessing the records. Like, you can do this in their records. Just listen, write down, boom, they have their invocation. So that was like kind of like sprinkled throughout my several years of working in the records so far, because I've been working in the records for 7 years now. So, and I've been teaching for, I've been teaching for 6 years. So anyways, when I started to come to this really big transition point in my work in the records, the guidance that I was getting was to help people create their own way of working in the records or beyond. Like, it wasn't limited to the records, but in order to identify what that invocation would be, they had given me this blueprint. So they're like, here's a blueprint of questions that somebody can look at and answer, and that will start to create an invocation. Now, I've been sharing this work for the last like 5 months. In fact, I received the blueprint several months ago, and then I started testing it out, and I was like, oh, okay, it looks like it's working. And then I created the whole body of work, and then I tested it out on a group of students, former students of mine, well, current as well. So I tested it out on them. And what I started to see is everybody's way of connecting to this non-physical source looked so different. And I wanted everyone to truly honor how unique that was. So some students don't even want to say anything. They just want to feel. And that's their way of connecting into the records. Some students, like, here's just some examples. One individual received a song as their invocation. Another individual received a poem as their invocation. Another student their work is body movement. And so they've incorporated their body into opening up to this resource. So it started to just really take shape, and to like see how each person got to honor what that was, and like be the authority of their connection to this source. I was like, oh my God, I swear to God, like, this is what I was like here to do. But then the curriculum that I developed, so the first 2 classes obviously are helping someone to attune to that and then to articulate that. But then classes 3, 4, and 5, we just like blow it out of it is just like crazy. Like, we take it and we just magnify it by like an infinite amount of, it's just crazy. So basically what I'm saying is, okay, great. Now we have this invocation. What are the best ways to use it? And what is the best way to be in partnership with life, physically and non-physically? And so it's this work that really helps somebody feel supported along the way. And it doesn't mean that it takes away self-doubt, because I still have students that struggle with self-doubt. But what it means is that these students are now in a relationship that is a relationship of their choosing.
Yeah.
It's like the words of their choosing, their connection of choosing.
I love this, because one of the things I realized, and I remember you said this in that first class I went to with you, was that some people just naturally are accessing the records. And when you said that, I finally, because especially the first body of work that I started to develop under like the banner of Embodiment was my Wild Soul Movement practice in 2013. And as I was developing that practice, and as people were signing up and doing it online and taking my classes and whatever, who'd be like, oh, this is just like da, 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 or this reminds me of this, or this reminds me of that. And then I'd go look up what that thing is. And I'm like, oh, damn, like that. But I hadn't known what it was.
Right.
And I was like, how the hell, like, where's the shit coming from? I was never out here trying to act like I invented. Like I've always called myself a synthesizer. I'm like, I'm pulling together things that already exist, but in a lot of cases, I don't know how or where from they already exist. So it's like when people come to me and tell me that, I'm always like psyched because I'm always glad. Hang on. I'm always glad to have context. Like if I can see like there's science to support something that I've like, air quote downloaded, I'm like, great. I'm doing it anyway because I have that trust, but so good to know that this is rooted in something beyond, wherever I pulled it from. So I love that you're helping people chart their own way to that, because I mean, outside of, that prayer or whatever, a friend of mine was like, you just like live in the Akashic Records now. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I do, but I don't think I live in the Akashic Records 24/7, but I certainly don't need to like say the prayer to get up in there.
Right. Right. Elizabeth. Oh my God. I wanted to say, so this work that I've been developing, it's really, the guides are calling this work like a bridge generation.
Ooh.
And essentially what that means is we're coming back to that inner authority. We're coming back to our voice. We're able to express that in our own way, what that connection is. But we're moving into this, I would say, generation where we've always been connected to the records. I think that what Linda's work has taught us is that we can be conscious about connecting to the records. We can be aware of, oh, I'm working in this resource and here's the things that I can obtain from this connection. But we're moving into this generation where we don't necessarily need anything. Like it is there inside of us, but can we be conscious to it? Can we use it in the way that's going to be most supportive to us? So it kind of reminds me of where you are. And like just that friend saying, like, it feels like you live in the Akasha. It's like, yes, you do. And we all do.
Right.
But can we also be conscious of it? Because when we're conscious of it, then it's always available. It's always alive for us. When I'm not aware of it, like, and I'm like in my humanness, sometimes I can feel really disconnected from it.
Yeah. Yes. My goodness. In the months that I was in transition, like moving to Miami, basically like, I want to say April to mid-July of this year, and it's 2021 in case anyone's listening to this, like years from now, was some of the most challenging months of my entire life. And it was, I felt like my connection was just much harder to come by. Like I had to really work for it in a way I don't usually have to work for that connection. And that also made me appreciate it so much more deeply because I missed it. I really felt that the impact of not being as deeply or easily connected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love this conversation so much. I kind of want it to go on forever, but I know it has to end eventually. Anything I haven't asked you that you're like, oh, I was hoping we were going to talk about this?
I think one thing just in terms of the work that you do on theme with that work, and a lot of what I've also been working on developing through my records is how does one embody this relationship that we have to this non-physical? And a lot of what they've been teaching me recently, this is really fascinating. They showed me a spider and a web. And it's like the spider is obviously working really hard to build this web, but then they just sit and they just receive. And so a lot of what the records are teaching me right now on a human level, it's like I'm in this transition. Obviously, I'm looking for places, haven't found the right place yet. So it's like I'm building my web, right? But then there's a point where I get to just be with what I've built, even if I have not aligned with exactly where I'm meant to be, but to just like be there and then to just trust that I'm going to receive it, that it's going to come. And that's something that I'm still moving through right now. But I think when it comes to being embodied, it's like they know it's all going to work out. You know, it's all going to work out. But how can I embody that trust or that knowing that it is going to, like, how can I live my physical life knowing and being embodied in that trust?
I love this. I love this because this is something, again, as I've been like just binging on Carolyn Mace, it's been revealing to me where I can really be very mental. I have a lot of Gemini in my chart, Virgo. I have 2 different Virgo placements, and that's ruled by Mercury, which is like just the mind. Like my mind can be very, I think this is probably the cosmic irony of me doing embodiment work is how overactive my mind, like I need this shit, like even my forever tagline, get out of your head and into your body. It's like, because I need it every friggin' day. And so, but lately though, and I love to use the word bridge because I think about being a bridge and bridges all the freaking time, is also going, okay, so we have the mind and we have the body, but then the energy, and like the body is the bridge. It's like the vessel for the energy. So when I was listening, you talk about like the spider, which I love spiders, by the way. And when I first got to Miami, I was staying at my friend's house, and there was always a spider building a web by one of the doors, like the side door or the front door, which I was always, and I would watch and be like, I walked through one of them one day and I was so sorry. I was like, I wasn't even like freaked out, like, oh, there might be a spider on me. I was like, the first words out of my mouth were, I'm so sorry. Like, that I just messed up your web that God only knows how hard or how long you've been working on. But the energy, it's like, how am I aligning myself with the energy? How am I feeling? How, again, this is why I'm doing those energetic attunements in the Embodied Living Center. How am I attuning myself to be able to sense when there's an energy shift, or when my energy is off, or when the energy of something isn't appropriate or isn't aligned? That's one of the things I've noticed. It's like a gift and a curse. I really am such like an optimist and an idealist. I can get very distracted by shit that's just not happening. I have a very strong fantasy factory in my brain. It's like, okay, but what's the real energy here? And like feeling that, like the truth of the energy, and like what needs to be addressed, what needs to be shifted. It's so juicy.
I know you said something that really stuck out to me. It was when you accidentally stepped in the web, and just the word impermanence came to me.
Yeah.
But also, we're on this physical planet living these physical lives, and that's just part of our experience and our work, is to build, is to create. And it is this infinite experience that just continues to grow and expand. One of my doctors said to me, he's like one of my metaphysical doctors, I was mugged, and I'd never been mugged before. Like living in Los Angeles for 16 years, never been mugged. And so I was like, whoa, that was really jarring. And he said, and one of the things that we're working on was not feeling safe inside my body. And what he said to me was, your body is on loan from this planet. And yes, you may not feel safe, but you are safe. And so you have to work to really connect with that safety of like being in this body. And that was so helpful for me because, of course, in that, kind of a scenario, I definitely disconnected. Oh, it's not safe to be in this body. You didn't help me. Like you put me, you led me right into the lion's den. But then I feel like after that experience, I came back into relationship with my body, and it was like an even deeper relationship that I wasn't experiencing prior to getting mugged. It was like, oh no, let me come back to this. Like, and I felt so bad for abandoning myself like during that time, but it was like kind of coming back to like, oh my God, you did protect me. You did everything that you could do in that moment to protect me. And even though they got my purse, they didn't get anything. You know what I mean? It's like, they didn't get you. And so I love that concept of impermanence, because I think what it does is it always brings us back to this. it can lead you to a deeper relationship, like of being embodied.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's hard. Amazing. Okay. Your website, it just comes up automatically in my browser because I've gone to it so many times. Spell it out for the people, would you?
Okay. Yes. So it's Just Be True to You. So it's
Like a bee.
JUSTBEETRUE, like a bumblebee.
Yep.
TRUE, the number 2, and then YOU.
Okay. Justbetruetoyou.com. Do you do
Yes.
much on social media?
I am pretty dormant, admittedly. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been doing everything like under the radar. Like when I developed these classes, I tested it out on former students. And then I was like, okay, now it's ready for the world. And I made a little announcement. Like I haven't been like, I haven't been fully present on social media, but I think it's because I'm kind of like, I'm like a chef in a kitchen. You know, it's like I'm trying out these new recipes. Let me make sure they're good to go before I really share it.
Kitchen. And so the best way to reach you is your website, right?
I would say through my website. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, my contact information.
And then
there.
Do you still have that Facebook group?
I do. Yes.
Right. And how do people find? That's only for
well,
certified folks, right?
That is only for certified folks, but I will, we're also we have transitioned to Mighty Networks as well. So we have a Mighty Networks community. It's called Akashic Community. We do have the Facebook community, which was for certified students, but I'm in this place right now where I'm trying to figure out like the Facebook presence there. But on social media, like you can find me on Instagram, like under my name, Helen Vonderheide. And then there's also an Akashic community page as well. So yeah, I think as things just start to be more solidified in this body of work, I'll start to get a little bit more present.
Awesome.
And
great. I love Mighty Networks, by the way. If you ever want to geek out on that, call me.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I've been using it for the last, like, I'd say 6 months, but like, I love it.
I love it. So, well, great. This was amazing. I cannot wait to hear from people after this in this episode, especially people who've been doing readings with me for a couple of years now, or even just one reading and have been like, oh my God, like people, it's just my favorite friggin' resource. And I know a lot of people feel that way as well. So I just can't wait to hear what might pop for people as they listen to the conversation. And it was exactly what I wanted. I just wanted to geek out with you on the records, hear how it's developed and evolved for you and all that stuff. I appreciate your insight and your energy and all of this so much, and how pivotal you are in my journey. Thank you very much.
Oh, yes. Oh, Elizabeth, like it's so mutual. I'm so grateful for you. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of your community and share this work with just your friends and family and loved ones. I'm like so excited to be here.
Amazing. All right, everyone, check out Helen's stuff, see what she's got going on. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you later.